Hey, I'm Tech. Welcome to Off the Cuff. First of all, I wanted to give a big thank you to everybody who wrote a comment on my last video answering the questions that I've asked. They've really helped me already as I'm thinking towards the future of tech labs in the upcoming year. So thank you. If you haven't, head over there, answer the questions. Don't even have to watch the video. They're just in the description. And let me know your thoughts so that I can make this a better experience for everyone. Today, I wanted to start off the cuff by talking about 3 people. And as I name them, I want you to see if you can figure out what they have in common. Number 1, Rebecca Black. Number 2, William Hung. And number 3, Florence Jenkins. Now, if you said in your head they are all terrible singers, you would be right. Rebecca Black rose to fame in 2011 with her video or song Friday, which was annoying and Rolling Stone called an unintentional parody of modern pop, and it's probably one of the funniest songs of late. Her singing was criticized. It was heavily auto-tuned. Arguably, she's not a terrible singer once the auto-tune goes away. There's a couple of unplugged versions of Rebecca Black online you can find, which she's not too bad, but she's generally not considered to be a great singer. Surprise, surprise. But her video has millions and millions and millions of views. People all over the world have seen it tons of times, and it's just so well known. William Hung, if you remember, rose to fame in 2004 from the television show American Idol. He was a contestant. He was one of the individuals paraded by the producers in front of the judges who can't sing in order to be, torn to pieces from them. He sang a very terrible version of Ricky Martin's She Bangs in a very monotone she bang, she bang. Anyway, he was eviscerated by the judges, as was expected, but then got a record deal and money and minor fame, but has largely faded out of our consciousness. If you look, you can still find that audition online, but it's not very popular. Even though people were talking about it back in 2004, it was a big deal. The videos and the mythology around it didn't really persist very long. The third person, Florence Jenkins, you've probably never heard of unless you know a little bit about Americana culture in the early 1900s. She was considered to be the worst opera singer of her time, and people would flock from miles around to come see her sing. So what is it? We also don't have very many recordings of her, so it's hard to actually hear her. But what is it about modern culture that lets memories like Rebecca Black's Friday stay a lot stronger in our minds than even William Hung's, which was about 7 years previous, or Florence Jenkins a decade ago? One of the big influences, and you can argue with me on this, and if you'd like to, just let me know in the comments. I'm going to say that one of the biggest influences is the internet. The internet is forever. At least it's looking that way. So much of what we do happens online that would be impossible to continue most of modern society without it. And we're talking of everything from banks to communication. Everything is using the internet. It is the backbone of modern life in terms of our modern culture. We can't live without it anymore. But a lot of the things we post to it are forever. Kind of, sort of. This is a benefit and a drawback. It's an unfiltered memory of the past. Anything that is on the internet, you can still go back and find. Google's really good that way. You can go and look up old sites. You can go to archive.org, use the Wayback Machine, and look at what sites looked like back in the 1990s or in the early 2000s. It's really amazing and incredible how good of a record we have of the last decade, especially with people heading online with social media and posting photos of their life and YouTube and putting their own videos, which I love because, hey, I'm making videos for YouTube and I hope they last forever. They just never really go away. Or do they? Interesting story. What happens if a website provider stops paying their money or takes their site down or alters some of the past articles? Suddenly this infallible record of the past is no longer infallible. I'm telling you, it's really, really easy to do. And if it's not a heavily indexed site, it's not going to be in the Wayback Machine. It's going to be difficult to figure out what things were back then. And even now, when we find the sites and we read them, I've had this happen to me a few times in research where I'll get information from a site, record the data, I found it, come back later, it's not there. The sentence, whatever I copied, wasn't there. So it took me a while, but I've now taken to actually printing off in a PDF format a physical copy of the site where I find information so that I have it there and can prove, yeah, this is where I found it. Because it sometimes just disappears and is gone. And then we ask the question of, do we believe that it ever really existed? Was it ever really there? We do question that in times. We rely on the authority and integrity of companies, especially news companies, that they haven't changed the past. Or if they have, they've added an edit and here's what they've updated, or edit, here's what the change has been and what date has. We trust them to keep the past sacred, which is kind of weird. And I mean that in the sense of it's something that shouldn't be altered or something that shouldn't be changed. At the same time, the internet can be a problem for big companies. Some intern somewhere says a really stupid thing on Twitter, and even though it's taken down within minutes, it's screen capped and shared and can become a massive PR nightmare, even though maybe 10 people or 100 people only saw it to begin with. Now we're talking about things being blown way out of proportion because of very minor indiscretions because of the internet. Because the internet remembers. Our memories are interesting. It's to our evolutionary advantage that we forget things. Now, you might not think that, but it really is. One of the things that forgetting does, according to most of our modern research and understanding, is it allows us to forgive others. It's one of the things that has allowed us to be more of a communal species than some other organizations. A lot of mammals do this. We forget things, and that allows us to forgive indiscretions in the past. We get mountains and mountains of positive evidence in the future, and it outweighs in our brain the effects of the past. At the same time, we misremember things all the time. I was rewatching a television show that I used to watch growing up, and there was a line that I really, really loved, and in my head, it was so clear how it was delivered, and guess what? Nowhere close to how I remember it being delivered. I had the situation from one section mixed with the line from another, and that for over a decade was in my brain as the way it happened. I had misremembered. But is that how it happened in my head? Yeah, it was, and that was real to me. And it wasn't a problem for me to find out later that, oh, I was a little bit wrong, but I would have sworn in a court of law that that is how it happened. And most of us are like that. We don't remember things properly. This helps actually allow us to change ourselves over time. None of us like to look back and say, I am a completely different person than I was yesterday or the day before, or I was wrong then. We can change and make improvements without actually having to admit that we're wrong. We can actually look back in some cases and say, yeah, I was always right. I always thought this way, because we don't have a record and our memories are fallible. This is to our evolutionary advantage that we forget. We can progress over time and forgive. But now we have the internet. The internet is there, and it is the biggest, most useful tool that has ever existed. It has allowed for the exchange of knowledge and understanding, has democratized education, democratized video, democratized so many aspects of our daily life, taken the power and put it back into the hands of the everyday, where literal startups in their garage can sell for billions of dollars within years. And we see that happening on a regular basis with the internet. Except we can also fix the now in the past. Because the internet is so good at remembering, it remembers. And where we might change or progress, it doesn't. It fixes ideas in the past, and as they get passed around and reread and re-engaged with, they get distilled into their essence of that time, the original time that it was put there. It's the weirdest form of nostalgia where we literally get fixed in the past. It's like Christmas carols, where it was the baby boomers and their Christmas carols of their childhood that have defined since then what carols are common, because they're such a powerful cultural group in the North American society. They just don't forget, and they don't want new ones, because those are the ones that they grew up with. So those are the ones that we're still singing and hear in the stores repeated and repeated over and over again around Christmas time. So these old events and these old ideas can keep and persist much longer and much more sharply than they would have otherwise. Old slights can come back stinging as bright as day when you reread it on Facebook or on Instagram or on Twitter. Oh yeah, that's why I hate that person, even though they've done many other good things and maybe even have changed. Well, maybe the internet is not a place where we allow change. We certainly don't allow it of our politicians. We don't allow it of our companies. We want to fixate on what they've done wrong in the past and not give them the opportunity to move forward in the future. Here's a really weird trend that I've seen. I have on my Facebook feed notifications from a lot of different people, obviously, who sharing things, and with the way that Facebook's set up, people who share the most, you end up seeing them the most. And so I have a few different political and ideological backgrounds that show up on a regular basis on my Facebook. And on occasion, I will see an article posted and people all up in arms about it on Facebook. And I will look at it and say, this article is 3 years old. The title is something like, "You won't believe what X just did." And it's 3 years old. And they're calling for a boycott, or they're calling for hatred, or anger or something. But there's no date on it. There's no date unless you actually go and really look, read the article, look at the facts, look at the date, look at other articles around it to figure out when this happened. The past is literally coming back to haunt us. It's just over and over and over again because there are sites that don't add dates to their website. How do you not add a date? I mean, you have to have a date if you're publishing news. Well, and sorry, it's to their benefit to not have a date, because that means when it does come back, they get more ad revenue from it and they don't have to do any more work for it, which is good for them as a company. But for us as the end user, it fixates us in the past. And these articles can come back over and over and over again. I've only seen it recently, I've seen it recently, and I can only expect that it's going to get worse as more and more aggregates don't date with clickbait headlines that draw people in, get them worked up, and the dates might, even if they're there, are really, really tiny. Guys, read the dates. I've even had it happen on my channel. I had a comment about how bad my videos had been since the J58 video. And it was written on one of my earliest things. And he's like, "You're getting worse." Well, no, you've actually gone backwards in time. So I've actually gotten better since the very beginning, but you're going the wrong direction. And so yeah, it looks like I'm getting worse. Why don't I take them down? Because I still feel they have value, so they're staying up. And I'll talk about value at a different time. But looking at the dates is now a very important way of understanding how the internet works. When you search on Google, it pulls up the most relevant site, usually based on the number of links that are pointed to it. Not necessarily the most recent article, not necessarily the most current information, but whatever is the most popular. That's a problem. In the European Union and in some other countries, there is a concept called the right to be forgotten. It was codified officially into law about 2014. It's been around since around 2006 or before, and the idea is that individuals have the right to have their mistakes on the internet expunged. And I want to bring this up and look at both sides because it's a very hot issue, because on the one hand, it's requiring internet sites and Google to censor the internet and remove the links. In fact, they're trying to require Google to not point to it from outside their jurisdiction, like from the United States, to those same articles or videos or images or whatever it is. That violates net neutrality, and I am not okay with that. But at the same time, I imagine a hypothetical situation where we have two people applying for the same job and they have the same qualifications, and realistically everything about them is the same at the moment, except this person in the past had a DUI or some other charge that shows up online, or an unpaid parking ticket, or had revenge porn made about them by their boyfriend in an age where this is really happening today. And guess who gets the job? Well, it's not them. They lose it because of some indiscretion in the past that has persisted on the internet and cannot be forgotten. This is almost as big of a problem, if not an even bigger one, than net neutrality. So what is there to be done? Because we have the very, very essential ethos of the web, net neutrality on one hand, and the right to be forgotten on the other, and both are necessary in this day and age. And at the moment, all we have is to rely on the honesty of the companies putting up the links to keep our history preserved. Let me know what you think about the right to be forgotten and about the memory of the internet in the comments below. And while you're there, consider subscribing if you're not already, or share this video with others who might need to think about the internet and how it is a place of remembrance. Till next time, I'm Tech Adams, saying keep thinking, and thanks for watching.